close to the size of Indy.
Oh, geez.
All told, it's about 200,000, but there's so many towns connected to it that when you get the Rio Grande Valley area as a whole, it's close to 1 million people. So very spread out, obviously, as Texas is huge, but right along the border, there are a lot of people.
Wow.
Yep. So a lot of opportunity to help out.
Yeah. So what kind of crime was it? Drug crime and violent crime and stuff like that?
Yeah. A lot of cartel, the cartel ran, when you're 5 minutes from Mexico, it's kind of what you would expect. But a lot of drug crime, a lot of, fronts in our little town where we lived as like a suburb. I think one day I counted 27 car dealerships. And
Jeez.
I was like, there's not nearly enough people to keep all 27 of these car dealerships open. Clearly they were fronts for, some of them probably were fronts for drug lords and the cartel. Similar to if you ever watched Breaking Bad, how Walter White opened up the car wash our company.
That amazes me though, because it's on the Texas side of the border, and there's that much like fronts for crime, and we couldn't control that. That blows my mind.
Yep. Yeah. There's so much. And all the clubs and downtown restaurants and bars all owned by or funded by cartel money.
Oh, that's scary.
You had to be careful where you went and what you did, for sure.
Wow, because if you mess with a cartel member, it'd be
it's over for
literally. You. That's scary. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into. Just basically how often did you go into Mexico?
I would probably go maybe once a month or so. Anytime work teams would come down or friends would visit. We would take them into Mexico, and I had friends that lived on the Mexico side that crossed over and played soccer with us every weekend. Okay. And so these are Mexicans who just cross over. There's people who cross over every day to work. A lot of Americans don't think about it, but your commute 20 minutes, their commute is also, 20 minutes, but includes crossing the border to get to work every day.
Wow.
So it's much more free flowing than a lot of people probably are picturing in their minds.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have even guessed that there would be. I just think it would be people just tourism. That's it. I wouldn't have guessed there was traffic of people working across the border. So those people would just have work permits.
Yeah. Yep.
And they just go back to Mexico. So they're making really good money in the United States. Go back to Mexico and probably doing better. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Mexico doesn't care as a country. They don't care that their citizens do that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They encourage it because it's getting, foreign product and foreign money into their economy.
Oh,
so in theory, it's boosting the Mexican economy. If you take money from the U.S. and use that, not take money, but, if there's an influx of money from the U.S. Into Mexico, that's only going to help boost their economy. So yeah, they were all for it.
Yeah. So, just going into that issue of people crossing the border, like a lot of Midwestern people and people who voted for Trump, they're all like, we got to have a wall. Now, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I was thinking we need one too, just because I think my ignorant knowledge is that, we're paying for immigrants to live here that are legal. But now, what do you think about it? Do you think a wall's that big of a deal? Do you think it's a waste? Do you think it's just a big political, big political propaganda just to keep votes? Or what do you think about the wall? Being an international person that you have had experience with.
Yeah, I would say it's my personal opinion. There's better ways for us to spend money. Than a wall. We absolutely do pay a fair amount in, people who come in and kind of abuse the welfare system. And want things handed to them. But, that's part of the deal or part of what's going on with that. And it's, I don't quite know how you fix that. I tend to lean towards less government control than more government control as an individual. But if that's, if we are going to have these programs, these people, especially the illegal ones or the ones who come over undocumented, it's not like they're coming over and start getting, $2,000 a month welfare checks. They are constantly terrified. Most of them are very hardworking. A lot of the people that I knew personally, who were illegal or undocumented on the Texas side are just terrified daily because immigration's all over the place. So at any point in time, they might say the wrong thing, or they might get a routine traffic stop or whatever. And the whole life that they built up is just done and over with. Yeah. And it's guys that, load the tomatoes from the warehouse and load them up onto the semis to go. They do that 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for $6 an hour, or $7 an hour. And then come and play soccer afterwards. So it's not like they're living the life of luxury. So I don't always, it's not, because of that, I'm not too worried about it as far as, how much we're spending. Now, if we built a wall, there's different evaluations on what the cost would be, but it's something like I've seen around 60 billion to construct. And it's even almost impossible to cover that amount of land. There's all sorts of reasons why it probably will never happen, including the cost. But
because we have a long border with Mexico.
We have a very long border,
huge border.
Yep.
And a very rough landscape to put a border.
Oh, absolutely.
Ooh,
it'd be quite difficult. So I had people in church who I knew, I'd go to the church down there, and on one side of me was someone who worked for ICE, and on the other side of me, I knew he was undocumented.
Wow.
And we're sitting in the same pew on Sunday. So it's a different, but it's just part of the culture down there. I would say 99.9% of these people that are crossing over are not trying to, rob and steal and murder and kill and pillage. They're not coming to take live in your summer home on the lake up in Michigan. They're just coming to find a good job, to try to make some money, and all the money they make, they for the most part, Western Union it back to their parents or to their family back home. And especially in Ecuador, that was very common, is you would have men who would start families at 19 or 20. And then after a few years, have a few kids, they would move to New York or move to Texas and start working and send money back. And sometimes those dads would come back, and sometimes the dads liked life in America and just stayed there and left their family behind. So there's a lot of people, especially in Ecuador, bring it back to that I were friends with that had dads, but they may as well not have, as their dad lived stateside and just would send a check, once a month of the money he made back to the family.
That's just such a hard life. I mean, if they have to make that choice, they must really need the money to support their family if they're willing to separate themselves. That's a hard life.
Yeah, the desperation level when you start talking to these people, you realize, this isn't as you said, it's not a luxurious choice. It's a desperation choice.
Man, that's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also going to ask you, now you told me about something that was really interesting. We started talking about, you said something about a country that you knew about that legalized drugs, and you couldn't think of the name of it. And then you told me it was Portugal, and you said it was a country that's tried to, speaking of the wall and Trump thinking that drugs are coming over the border, and a lot of people think it comes to the coast and not just the border, but everybody's thinking the propaganda is that all the drugs are coming over the border. And you say that's kind of difficult. I kind of backtracked a little bit back to Mexico, but how do you think it was easy to get drugs across the line by car and automobile? How easy do you think that was for people in Mexico or smugglers back and forth? How easy do you think that was to do that?
Yeah, it's extremely easy, and I would highly recommend if you're of age to watch Narcos on Netflix. They do a great job of even going into more detail. They would put, they'd fill fake coconuts full of cocaine, and they would hide it in the fiberglass of boats that they were shipping over, and then melt it down and get the drugs out of the literal boat fiberglass. A common trick that they do on the border is they'll send one car loaded down with a young family, and then they almost intend to get caught. And once they're getting caught and going through the process, and everyone's focused on that one car they just caught, they'll shoot 6 or 7 more through and look completely ordinary, loaded down with drugs, and drugs hidden everywhere. So building a wall is not going to stop it. Most of the traffic comes from, or most of the drugs come from legal entry points as is. For cartel, essentially it's free to make. So they're just going to keep doing that. And, you can pay someone $1,000 to be a mule. You basically have an unlimited supply of people to run drugs for you, as long as they don't get caught. And even if they do, you can get another family. So
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, how does that family, how do they get convinced to do that? That's crazy.
Well, money can talk, and so can guns. And so it's, hey, either we'll pay you, and then if the family pushes back, it's like, well, or we'll just kill your kid or kill someone or that sort of thing, or part of getting introduced. Yeah, so
that's terrible.
So it's basically the desperation. You have no choice.
Sounds like it's as bad as TV shows like Narcos and Ozark. It sounds like it's as bad as it really is.
It is. It's close. It's close to that. But what's funny is we always think, oh, what a terrible problem. And I'm not just, obviously it is a terrible problem, but we never think, where do these drugs go? Yeah. And it's really, this is actually an American problem. It's not a border problem, because the cartel doesn't exist if people aren't using drugs, or if we figure out a way to help those who are on drugs get off drugs. And this is where I did more research and found Portugal, the country you're talking about, who in 2001 became the first country to completely decriminalize possession and consumption of all illicit substances. So rather than being arrested, if you're caught with a personal supply, you would be given a small fine and then told to appear before a local commission, which included a doctor, a lawyer, and then a social worker. And then they would talk to you about treatment, harm reduction, and then support services that were available to these people. So here, if you get caught, if you get pulled over and you have weed in your dashboard or in your side console, you could possibly go to jail, or especially if you have a little cocaine or drug like that. You're going to get arrested, and now you're through the court system. There, you pay a fine, and instead of just throwing you in prison, it's, hey, let's go talk to a doctor, a lawyer, and a social worker to see what's going on. And so I started doing some numbers on this. So in Portugal, they built their first center, cost $2.6 million, publicly funded, that opened 9 years ago. So what they do at this center is they can house up to 14 people at once. Treatments are completely free. You get referred to by that doctor or therapist that you just saw after you got arrested, and it lasts 2 weeks. And so, at first thought, it's like, well, how would we ever pay for this in America? Well, the war on drugs, which started before I was born, so I know we're on, I think year 30 maybe on the war on drugs in the stateside. It's obviously rough estimates, but it's been estimated at $1 trillion for us to fight this war on drugs. Obviously, I think most people, if you polled most Americans, said, hey, how's the drug problem in the States? They'd probably say worse than ever. I know in our line of work, we see it every day, but with parents and people in the community, it's absolutely terrible. So what if, instead of locking people up, and this was Portugal's idea, let's try to help them and solve these underlying issues. And so they built this first center. So doing the quick math, if you took the $1 trillion we've spent so far and just said, we're going to open an identical center to what Portugal did, we could have opened 385,615 centers throughout the U.S., which would have helped 5.4 million people every 2 weeks get off drugs.
Isn't that crazy? Because
absolutely insane.
The only centers we have are methadone clinics that we put them on a drug that just makes them addicted to methadone.
Yeah, it makes you a little less, or addicted to a drug that's a little less potent.
Yes.
That's all we have.
I've got these stats up here from Portugal, like I've got on the internet, and it said, like, they had, how many deaths? Drug-induced deaths per million population ages 15 to 64. They said there were six drug-induced deaths in Portugal in 2017 compared to 185 deaths in the United States, and we're by far the worst. We're like almost 50% more than the second most country, which is Estonia, that had the second most drug-induced deaths. And we're like 185. Estonia is roughly like 105. The UK is 60 drug-induced deaths per million, and Portugal 6. Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary a little bit. Hungary are a little bit smaller.